Yeah, I like to go with Resident Evil with this one. Any version, whether it's the original, 1990, what was it, six release, or 97, and or the remake for the GameCube, or the remastered versions for the modern consoles. It just has a lot of value because that was kind of like the first game that, growing up, I was a huge Nintendo fan, and that's all I would play. Growing up in South America, the Super Nintendo era was just dominated by Nintendo. And then moving on to the next gen, with the 64, I decided to stay on that route. But Resident Evil, the original one for the PS1, was the game that kind of opened my eyes and steered me away, not from Nintendo, because I'm always a fan of them, but just gave me a new perspective on other consoles and new experiences. And I remember my friend had the original game, but he had no memory card, so we would play that game, and it was, if you died, you had to start over. So that upped the tension, and we were pretty young, and that I just have a lot of fond memories of me and my buddies after school, getting together and concentrating and try to be very careful and dying over and over again. Learn from your mistakes, learn where the enemies were coming from, and all that. And then, of course, the remake for the GameCube came out a few years later, and that game just blew me away. It's one of my favorite games of all time, one of the best remakes in my opinion. So yeah, Resident Evil 1, it's up there for me.
I fucking love Resident Evil. I just want you to know that. Have you ever played the Saturn port?
I did not. Nope.
The Saturn port is pretty good. It's very, very close to the PS1 game, only it adds a tyrant at the end. It's like an extra tyrant. I'd say the only difference. Yeah. That's like the only difference, and I have that version too.
Have you played the DS version?
Yes, I was gonna make that one too. I also have the DS version. that was actually my first time playing through the original version of one. I had played the remake version of one. Mm-hmm. It's on my DS, and I remember it was like a good 3 months. That's all I did. I would be at school or at home or something, and I would pull out I had one of those blue DSIs, and I'd be playing my the original Resident Evil during class or whatever.
That's awesome.
I love Resident Evil.
Deadly Silence, I think it was called.
Yeah, Deadly Silence was a genius name for DS.
DS, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Did you guys know that Resident Evil was called Biohazard in Japan?
Yeah. Biohazard.
Did you know? Yes,
dude. I remember when this game was out. I never had a PlayStation back then, but my friends were playing this like crazy, and I just thought it was the most cutting edge graphics I'd ever seen. Watching this is the one where it starts with the burning, right? The fire.
No,
is that 2?
No,
this is the mansion.
Oh, it's 2.
Yeah, the fire is 2. Yeah.
In the first Resident Evil, you're in an evil residence.
Oh, that makes sense. Either way, I remember they were playing both of them. I specifically remember that one, but they played all these ones all the way up to Nemesis, and I just remember thinking these games looked so crazy good, and I never really caught on to the bad voice acting until I got older.
Oh my god, what is this?
This is blood. What a mansion.
That's good.
It's not Chris's blood. I just want Barry to have his own game, guys. That's all I want.
Well, I think he plays a big role in Revelations 2, which I haven't played it yet, but that's on my to-do list.
It's good. It's really good. But I don't know. He's like the shining star of that original game. Oh my god.
We got into a bit of a debate earlier on this, and it's not really my intention in asking this, but it was just out of interest and curiousness that you brought this up. Was like when you played it back in the day, you didn't have the memory card, and so you played it, trying to do it in one shot, and there was high tension. Do you think that you can experience games now in the same way that you did as back when you were younger?
It's hard, not with modern games, not with modern Resident Evil games, obviously, because they're all, out of save and all that. It's hard, I guess you can compensate. Modern games can compensate with, better graphics and better effects, sound effects, and to scare you off. But it's hard, because when you're growing up, and that game was just like not the first survival horror game. I think Alone in the Dark was probably kind of like the first one, but back then it was just it was a new thing, and the fact that you could die and had to start over again, that was like crazy back then. And he did buy a memory card like 2 or 3 weeks after he got the game, so we were finally able to beat the game. But yeah, nowadays it's hard. Like unless you play games like Fire Emblem games and you play the non-casual mode, those can be very tense because if you make a mistake, you can lose your units for good. So that's kind of like the closest I can compare, I guess, for modern games.
I'll tell you what, the Resident Evil 2 remake tried though with Mr. X.
Yes.
Chases you and stuff like that is pretty scary,
And they succeeded because
there's high tension there always.
Yeah. I hate how it's kind of like bullshit how he follows you, and then if you run, like the game has this algorithm where they just spawn him closer to you.
It's like the Michael Myers effect, right? It's like he's walking, like catches up somehow.
Yeah. And I haven't played the third one yet. I'm waiting on like a Black Friday sale to pick up. But I've heard Nemesis is kind of disappointing on the third one.
I don't like the original Nemesis game on PS1, so getting to play the remake is actually kind of nice for me. It's like I actually appreciate the story without having to play because I didn't like how they tried to make the original version like a action paced game, but they still kept like the Resident Evil like style for that era. It just didn't work for me, So
yeah, for the remake, I think they hyped it up where I remember hearing that Capcom was saying that Nemesis was supposed to follow you through the entire game, and he was supposed to go into the save rooms and all that. So I was like, oh my god, that's crazy. But sounds like it's pretty like scripted in a way.
Very scripted. He pops up in the spots he's supposed to.
I have a question about Resident Evil. Now, did you play 7? I guess would be the first question. And are you happy with that progression, or would you prefer more what it started out as?
I played 7, but I have not beat the game. I had an issue where like that game made me very motion sick for some reason, and I had the same problem with Resident Evil 2. And I found a way to tweak the settings on Resident Evil 2 where I wouldn't get motion sick, changing like the field of view, the FOV settings. But I need to go back to Resident Evil 7, but I have to admit I was not enjoying it as much as any other games. Like if I had to rank all the games, that's probably my least favorite. And I don't know. I feel like it's a very successful and effective horror game, but it's not a very effective Resident Evil game, if that makes any sense. Like it's not very tied to the story. I think towards the end there are some connections, but so far I played like halfway through the game, and I just didn't get that Resident Evil feeling from it yet, at least.
It's definitely lacking that identity. I feel. I like 7 quite a bit, but I did feel like it did kind of stray away, which I think is what they needed, because after like 6 and stuff, like I don't think anybody wanted another action story like that. Yeah. So I think what their plan was, okay, let's do something totally out there, totally different for the series, good, and then people will want that classic Resident Evil gameplay back. I think that's what they did, because they brought us the 2 and 3 remakes after that.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to Capcom refreshing the the gameplay style. At first, I was really scared when Resident Evil 4 got announced, in the sense that I was like, oh my god, they're changing the formula completely. I'm not sure this is going to work out, and Resident Evil 4 is one of my favorite games of all time. So.
That's their next remake, right?
The what?
That's their next remake. They've gone on record, talking about that. Yeah,
that's the rumor, and it only makes sense. I mean, they've done really well sales-wise with 2 and 3, so. And I've heard Resident Evil 8, I think it's going to follow 7. Like it's going to be like a first-person type of game, but we don't know. It's just rumors so far.
Yeah, I'm excited, and Resident Evil is awesome, and the first game is amazing. If you haven't played the first game, you should give it a try at least. I don't know which one you'd recommend. Maybe play the remake because it's available on like PS4 and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's more accessible. And it's a fantastic remake. They added the new areas, the new graphics. In my opinion, they still look good. The pre-rendered backgrounds, they still look great. So definitely the remake remaster version, I think it's the way to go.